Vicki Montagudo, owner and designated broker here at C21 Tri-Cities, and I'm here today with Jordan Barnhill. Welcome, Jordan.
Thanks, Vicki.
So how long have you been here at C21?
About 3 years now, so.
Hard to believe.
I know, it flies by, definitely in this industry too.
It does.
Right?
So what are some of the lessons learned over here in the last 3 years?
Well, probably the first most important lessons is always answer your phone. I mean, you know, it can be a crazy business, and one phone call could, you know, make a difference between, you know, $5,000 to $10,000 check in your pocket. So always answer your phone, and I always suggest too, just always, you know, stay on top of your business. Always, you know, create kind of schedules and timelines of, you know, your clients that you're working with, the deals that you have going on, and just so you can keep everything structured. And if you can do that, then it'll just kind of lead to more production and more volume, more deals. And so, yeah, that's how I go about it. So, yeah.
So in the 3 years that you've been in the business, I always have to ask this question. So before you got in the business, what did you think real estate was going to be about?
Okay, so I grew up with my mom being a broker, as you know, and even my grandfather also being a designated broker. And I remember growing up, my mom, she was constantly on the phone, on the laptop, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was always like, I do not want to get into that whatsoever. But I found, you know, that she's created, you know, very meaningful relationships with her clients, and they weren't just a client, it turned into a friend, family friend, and it was just so much more than just buying or selling them a house at the end of the day and whatnot. And so, yeah, I went to college for a year down in Colorado, and I just I didn't really, you know, it didn't mesh with me too well. I just felt like, you know, I kind of wanted to go in a different direction. And, you know, with my mom being in real estate, she suggested to me, hey, why don't you get your license? And I was like, okay, well, what do I have to lose? You know, the worst thing that could happen is I try it, I don't like it, and, you know, if I didn't like it, at least I could, you know, kind of have peace of mind down the road knowing I at least went for it and tried it, and it just wasn't the right route for me. So I tried it, and here we are. So it worked out.
So 3 years later, now what's your impressions about being realtors and being a realtor?
It's hectic. I mean, it's very hectic, but it's a hustle, and I love kind of the grind of it and whatnot. And, you know, it's awesome. There's no other feeling than, you know, meeting a client, them not knowing literally anything about the process. They don't know what, you know, mortgage loan or how to go about that. They don't know where to search. They don't know anything. And probably one of the things I love most, and especially working with first-time buyers as well, is, you know, when you kind of just, you know, take them from, you know, not knowing anything about the process, get them all set up, find their dream home, and just make it a seamless process, and handing them over the keys on the day when we cross the finish line. I mean, there's really no better feeling, you know, and those are the type of clients and, you know, the relationships that you make that are going to last forever at the end of the day. And so, yeah, that's
the way you take care of your client.
Right.
You know, what I've observed over the years is it's not just a transaction for you, it's a relationship.
Right.
Different doors, literally the doors that it has opened up for your career.
I always explain to clients that number one goal is to save them as much money as possible. That's always my goal, especially working with first-time buyers, really any type of client it is and whatnot. And so I always, you know, start to explain to them different loan programs or different incentives that can try to help save them money. And most importantly, I mean, really the number one thing you want to find out when purchasing a home is, what's my monthly payment going to be? What's my interest rate? Because that's what's most important. You know, is it within your budget? You know, do you feel comfortable with this monthly payment and whatnot? Because I want to figure out all that more important stuff first right there, just because that's really, you know, kind of something that if they go towards the purchase, that's what they're going to want to know is, you know, what my monthly payment is going to be, what's this, that, and the third, with the interest rate and all that good stuff. And so I always try to tell them, like, hey, the goal is to save you guys as much money, and I don't want you, you know, getting into something that you don't feel comfortable with, you know, financially. And so I think it's best to reach out to the lender and, you know, kind of start crunching some numbers. You don't have to give him credit. You don't even, you know, have to give him any documents. Just, you know, kind of tell him your situation, let him know we're working together, and pick his brain a little bit, you know, and just, you know, ask him different questions. It's great when you have a good team around you with the lending, the, you know, title, designated broker. And you know, it can really help just kind of make it a solid package for everyone involved in the transaction.
The other thing I've noticed in your 3-year career is how versatile of an agent you are. And when I say that, the versatility of not just selling pre-owned or used homes, but also new construction.
Right.
So what is maybe a story you could share with us about new construction or your passion for new construction?
So really, right when I was getting into the business, I started doing a bunch of open houses with Polish Homes, and I mean, I just kind of fell in love with them, and I started kind of feel like my mom after a while with how kind of meticulous I was with like, oh, that doesn't look right, or comparing builders, contrasting them and whatnot, and I just kind of fell in love with how they build their homes, the process from the front end to the back end side of things and whatnot. And really, it's so nice when a client is interested in new construction and you can, one, break down that entire process from them regardless of the builder, and two, if you are representing a builder or you've worked with that builder, you can also explain to them their process, their selections, their deposits, and so there's just a lot more to the process when working into new construction, as and so I think having the knowledge and with myself being kind of breaded, I guess, as a new construction listing agent, because that was, my first open house was a Polish home and whatnot, and I kind of, with it being my first open house, I had to force myself to learn those things because I used to have people come in and I had to know those questions. And my number one goal too, when I was working, when I work in new construction or I have clients, is I always want to know the answer to every single question they ask. And by any means, I'm not a yes man. I know that can kind of get you in trouble at sometimes, but my goal was to either answer every single question they needed. I never wanted to be like, I don't know, or
understand the builder's story,
right,
features, benefits,
right, or
community features.
100%, yeah, and or if you can't answer, then you can be the source of the source and get that answer for them, in an adequate amount of time.
So when I looked at the last 8 months prior to the 8 months to that,
right,
your unit value or your unit percentage actually went up 700%.
Yeah.
700%.
Right. Yeah. That's.
And we're talking during a period when the world's shutting down. There's COVID and pandemic. So what's your story to that?
So when the pandemic hit, I think all realtors were kind of a little bit scared of what was going to happen. We really couldn't show houses for a period amount of time, and so I went through a drought during that time, and just because I don't want to say I was giving excuses for myself, but there was so many, I guess, excuses to use, because everything was so different and whatnot. And then, once I remember us and, you and our sales manager, Don Segrin, meeting, and we just kind of came up with a game plan and, a weekly coaching on how I can go to the level that I want it to be at. And it's really helped with, not only you, but also Dawn, with sitting down, with me every single Monday, kind of combating every, situation I'm with, whether it's negotiating, client or contracts, anything along those lines. So it's really good to kind of have a coach that holds you accountable in those certain situations and, kind of is your cheerleader in the background, and making sure that you're staying on top of your clients, your deals, and, if I ever have any, discrepancy with how should I go about this or how should I negotiate this, what do I do in this scenario, is, that's something that I always talk with about Dawn, and we come up with multiple different solutions. And I can give an example actually that happened a few months ago with Dawn. I had this client and they were searching for a daylight basement, and because the mother-in-law was moving in with them, so they wanted the mother to kind of have her own little living area in the downstairs in the basement. And we could not find anything whatsoever, and just because the price point they were working within, so it was really hard to find exactly what could cater to their needs. And so spent tons of hours with them, showed them many different homes, and we just couldn't find the right one quite. And so Dawn was coming up with a game plan and said, well, what if we got them into just a regular basement or daylight basement? And my buyers, I should say this, that they wanted basically another living area in the basement. They wanted a fridge, full bath, a stove, everything that you can really live in. And so what we came up with was we found the house that they were wanting to go towards, and I talked with Dawn, and we came up with different solutions on how we could get those, we can build that basically down there for her. And so I put the clients in connection with different trade workers, got them a great deal, and that was just one of the many things that kind of Dawn helped me out. It never really dawned on me to say, maybe we can just install those things, and so I talked with them about it, and we got in touch with the right trades and subcontractors, and we got it all set up for them. They bought the home, and they're already done with the repairs, and they love it. And so, just something things you just don't think about sometimes, you know, and when you're talking to someone, either it's yourself or, Don, who's been in the business for many years and whatnot. I mean, you guys have so much experience and, have dealt with, far more, probably harder scenarios than, I have ever done in my short 3-year career. But it definitely helps, when talking to you guys, especially Dawn as well, coming up with just different kind of, ways to combat the situation and just keep the ball rolling with everything, and just not leave it a dead deal and do whatever you can to just, keep serving your client and to seal that deal. So,
I think that's what people need to understand. The realtor is not just the person that physically just opens doors for them to take a look to write a quick offer.
Right.
All these things that you're describing, you've got their financial interest in mind. You're also a resource. You're working within the trades and other contractors here in Tri-Cities to make sure that they're not taken advantage of because of wild pricing. Again, those are like 3 people built in to one position. You're almost triaging.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a realtor is, right? Sometimes we have to wear our counselor hat, our psychiatrist hat. I mean, you know how it is and whatnot. I mean, really, I never, to me, when I don't like to call clients. I mean, that's something, it's really that, hey, because really when I meet with a client, I talk so darn much that they end up being my friend, really regardless, just because we, talk about so many things that are unrelated to the deal or, what we're, there for and meeting for. And so, I'm curious, like what, are their interests, and
outside of the deal.
Yeah, exactly. And so I always like to, kind of just build that rapport with them and just, it's not really, oh, I'm just helping you find a house. It's just, there's so much more that goes to that, process and whatnot. And so I really like to get to know that person and, and I feel like once you get to kind of learn, how that person is, then you can accommodate how they are, versus what the goal is for them, at the end of the day.
It's not just 4 walls, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths.
Right, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
So Jordan, I have to ask, because we are in some kind of interesting times here in 2021, and you are on the front lines. You're on the front lines of new construction, you're on the front lines of pre-owned sales, and also what you're seeing in the financial markets relative to new construction and pre-owned pre-approval letters. What are your predictions for this year?
I personally believe that the market is going to stay strong. And we'll never run into another 2008, in my opinion, just because things were so much different back then. We've only had one housing kind of collapse, in the entire history of the market. And really, that was solely just because of the rules and kind of, the rules that lenders were supposed to fall within, within that time. And they didn't really have any rules to go off of at that time. And they did, obviously, but there was a lot of different kind of kinks to the system that you could work out to approve that buyer, whether it was, approving someone with a subprime, ARM, or, taking some white out to a W-2 or anything like that. I mean, I've heard of that, before. And so there's just so many more rules that, the lenders have to follow now. And, being a self-employed borrower myself, owning a small business, and myself just purchasing a home just a couple months ago, it was difficult to get a loan. I mean, I had to provide multiple documentation and really show the lender and the underwriters that I could be approved, and not fall through for years down the line with this mortgage loan. So I think, even though we're in unprecedented times, like I said, during COVID, there's so many more kind of hoops to jump through now with getting approved and whatnot. And I personally don't think that a lender is going to, they really have to cover themselves now, and they're not going to approve someone, that could likely, lose out on their home or, default on the, the loan down the road. And 2, I mean, with our market here, I personally think once the interest, why we're seeing, the crazy amount of, incline in the market with appreciation is solely just because 1, we have very, very little inventory. 2, the interest rate's at a historic low right now. And so when you have that, it's kind of just, it doesn't flow right together, I guess you could say. And so 1, there's many buyers out, but no listings. So when a listing comes on, obviously there's going to be a bidding war, multiple offer situation, and I've seen homes get sold for $42,000 over asking this year. And buyers they want it right now because they have such stronger buyer power than they'll likely ever have, or ever have before. And so regardless if they're going, $20,000 or $30,000 over what they want to pay, they're still going to get it because their monthly mortgage payment is going to be a lot lower than what they're, paying right now and whatnot. And so I think once the interest rates start to go back up and COVID is slowly starting to go away, with the vaccines coming about, I think that's really going to make the market kind of balance back out again with, interest rates going up, not as many buyers and whatnot, not as many multiple offer situations, and with COVID going away, more people are prone to putting their house on the market and, having people walk through it and having open houses and, all those things and whatnot. And so, right. And so, yeah, I think once the, COVID, gets all figured out and businesses can start opening back up, the vaccines start going out, I think that will, really help propel the market in all aspects.
You're in the trenches, you know what's going on
Definitely.
in today's market and specific to the Tri-Cities.
Right, 100%.